Travis Wayne Goodsell. Oh dear God, I knew it was going to be trouble, but I didn't know how much trouble. Joseph Smith history of 1838. Joseph Smith tells us that the Christian groups all interpret the same Bible passage differently. They all have a different interpretation, they all have a different belief, they all have different opinions about the same passage of Scripture. And that's supposed to teach Mormons not to pull that kind of a dumbass stunt. That the Book of Mormon is plain, pure, and precious. Don't misinterpret it. And yet. And so one of them is on polygamy. The Book of Mormon condemns polygamy 6 times. 6 different times throughout the whole Book of Mormon. And yet, Mormons are incapable of identifying a forged document, section 132, being able to distinguish between hearsay and primary source evidence, and denialism of the facts. There was one Mormon who thinks that John Dehlin got owned by some other guy because the guy talked about data. He wasn't talking about anything specific. It was a clickbait without paying for something. It was a trap because the guy had no substance in the quote to justify John Dehlin getting owned. Now, don't get me wrong, John Dehlin is a psychologist. They're all going to prison. We're just waiting for John Dehlin to go to prison. Jody Hildebrand. And treatment centers getting shut down for their abuse. But nonetheless, you can't just talk about a precept that's true and think that that owns John Dehlin. You've got to demonstrate what John Dehlin said and how it fits the precept that John Dehlin is exposed as wrong. The guy failed to do that. And he thinks he's clever and he thinks he's got him, and so his faith promotion in Mormonism is true, and therefore the church is true, and literal history interpretation of the Book of Mormon is true, and polygamy is true, and he can't wait until the millennium when he can have 10 child bride virgins. This is what nobody understands. Neither side. Neither Mormons nor ex-foes. You don't get it. You don't have the statements without doing any of the research, without being able to distinguish between hearsay and primary source document, and just pick and choose what you want to believe. Because you'll never be able to convince the other side that their feelings are wrong. Because they have those feelings and they know it's true. It will not work. Stop it. And then the other woman, apparently she does it herself and she brings on guests and stuff. But she's a Mormon also who believes that Joseph Smith was a monogamist. She believes. She didn't bother to do any of the research. She didn't bother to identify hearsay versus fact and primary source. Oh, dear God. Again, she chose to believe Joseph is a monogamist, And it doesn't matter what anybody else says. I knew I was going to cringe. I knew, but I'm sacrificing myself for you, hoping that I can break through the belief wall so that you'll understand truth when doing research, especially on church history, as this focus is about. Evidence is what is in the physical world, something you experience with your five senses. That is evidence. It happened, it was real, tangible, audible, tasteable, feelable, etc. The five senses. And so feelings are not evidence. They are automatically excluded from evidence. You can't use them to claim truth. Feelings are a response to experiences in life. So as a baby, you're growling in your tummy, you don't like it, you cry because you feel hunger. And so you cry because you don't like that feeling. It's a spiritual doubt promotion. But then this person picks you up, cradles you in their arms, and shoves a bottle in your mouth. You like that. Your tummy's not growling anymore. And so that bonds you through feelings to that person who's holding you in your arms, making you feel better. Okay? So you now trust that person, and you begin that trusting, bonding relationship. Because they're not trying to hurt you or cause you harm. They love you. Without saying the words, "I love you, dear." And all of a sudden I lose my female audience. Feelings are not facts. They are a response to experiences, which contain facts of the five senses, or evidence of the five senses. And facts are a combination of evidences that are developed into a theory as to the experience that happened. So a crime investigation. Who done it? Well, you got to get the evidence, and then you assemble the evidence into a theory. The theory has to be logically sound using Socratic methodology, not psychology of fallacy arguments. Once you use a fallacy argument, even if it's just one among all the others logical, it's still false. You've destroyed your conclusion. You will never learn the fact of who done it. And so the theory is the development of the premises that are supposed to naturally lead to the deductive conclusion. But you can't just state a theory. It has to be tested. Without a test of the theory is worthless. It's just no different than a belief, opinion, interpretation. And that's what the nation has done in redefining a conspiracy theory. conspiracy theory is not somebody's opinion. It's supposed to be this process to run a test to establish what a fact is. And the test needs to be repeatable in different ways. You can't just have one and say you're done. You need 3 confirmations of a theory to establish a fact from the evidence. Otherwise, it's wrong. And so if you've been hearing the last week or so, I'm talking about how the theory of evolution is false because nobody ran the test. You gotta run the test. Nobody's doing it. Nobody did it. Darwin didn't do it. Darwin's a dumbass. Everybody should have tested it. They didn't test it. Didn't find out. Darwin is a dumbass. And so same with the Big Bang Theory. That French Catholic, or the Belgian Catholic, dumbass. He didn't run the test. He was trying to harmonize science with Catholicism. Can't do that. You've destroyed your whole theory with a fallacy argument. Religion is just like psychology. And so the data guy didn't get it. And he cut out the part of the rest of the guy's talk that may or may not have established what the connection was with what John Dehlin said that the guy believed was wrong. I don't know. That was just the short that I heard. And so yes, you cannot explain Mormonism with a short. Prove my point, Child Faith. Can't be done. He failed, and yet I bet he got thousands upon billions of views of Mormons who think, yeah, get them, and those who follow John Dehlin's cult group, boo! Worthless. A worthless video. It is only good for the artistic value, which it's not my kind of art. But I can appreciate art for art. And so, John chapter 7 or 8. It's on 8. Why are you saying 7? Just because 53 is still left on the screen. Jesus goes unto the Mount of Olives, and then early in the morning he came again into the temple. So I guess he was camping out on the Mount of Olives. And all the people came unto him, and he sat down and taught them. So is he homeless? Jesus, the homeless. Get out, you're deported. You're not paying tithing. Section 119. And so he comes into the temple. Now this is believed to be the Roman period time, but this was written after the temple is destroyed. But we're not going to get in. We're going to assume this is all literal history. The Catholic Church or the Christian Church is true, regardless of the billions of different interpretations of the same passage. And so this is the Roman period time. Now the Jews got possession of the temple under the Greeks, who had occupied the temple and turned it into the abomination of desolation, where they destroyed the original Jewish altar and built a Greek altar and began offering Greek sacrifices, and began the prostituting of women in the Jerusalem temple. So the Maccabean revolt was kind of a big deal on why they should be celebrating Hanukkah, but because Constantine, the Orthodox Jews that I talk about in the comment reply video for Trial of Faith, don't even acknowledge the Apocrypha because the Catholics used it in their Septuagint. And yet they still tried to conform the translation of the biblical Hebrew text to the Septuagint. I just... Dear God. Anyway, they celebrate Hanukkah for the document they dare not acknowledge as theirs. And so you need to understand that the Jewish author, who's post-destruction of the temple, knows this. He knows the Roman practice, that they added males to be prostituted in the temples. Thus, you can use linguistics to identify Genesis as having been written during the Roman period time. That whole Sodom and Gomorrah story, for one example. Because the Tamar incident, well, that could be written during the Greek period of time. But Sodom, now it's the Roman period, because that practice was not practiced before the Romans. The Romans started it. Nobody seems to get this. Nobody wants to get it. They want their opinion to be true. The one true opinion. And this has to do with polygamy, sort of, to help you. And so he came in unto the people in the temple, and he sat down, and he began teaching in the temple. And the scribes and the Pharisees brought unto him a woman. Oh, in the temple, huh? You're claiming this is the Roman period time, but you're pulling a Greek practice, although Roman period had both women and men. You see what the Jewish author is doing? He's not talking literal history. He's prophesying of a future latter-day event with the Jewish Christ, whom he chose to name Jesus, Yah of salvation, because Jesus is the reverse spelling of Isaiah, the prophecies of Isaiah for the latter-day Jewish Christ Emmanuel, son of, or Messiah ben David, man like Moses. And I had a dumbass comment by a guy who says, the law of Moses has been fulfilled. There's no need for the keys of Moses. Oh my God. Oh my God. No, the law of Moses has not been fulfilled. We're not in Zion. You get stupid people who refuse to study, who refuse to learn the difference between hearsay, facts, and opinion. And they just spout off the stupidest things, and you judge them by their fruit, and you laugh at them, and they get angry, and they want to murder you for just dissing on their feelings that they know are true because they felt them. God, Mormonism is doomed. There is no hope for Mormons. You will not be saved. So the scribes and Pharisees bring a woman taken in adultery, which was the practice of temple prostitution, being performed in the Jerusalem temple. Sister Mendenhall, would you like to comment? As the home wrecker that you are, please make a comment. I feel so bad for the woman that nobody knows of, the wife of the guy she cheated with. What's happening to her? Her life is ruined. God. And everybody hates me for pointing out the fact. She's a whore. She committed adultery with another Mormon in the council. Oh, but they got married, so it's okay now. Well, what about the wife who got dissed on by both of them? See, Sister Mendenhall hates that wife because she stole the husband from her. And the husband abandoned her to cheat on her. Nobody thinks about this. And so only the woman who got abused by the two of them gets to go to Zion. Sister Mendenhall didn't repent by marrying him. She just made it worse. Anyway, so you need to understand, woman is not a virgin. This is where you need to know the culture of the time period and how we translate it from into English. Woman is not a virgin. She is a woman who's had children. She's in the temple. She's had children. She's having sex with different men. Prostitution. But the Jewish author does not want to focus on that, as Matthew, likewise, took out the part where Mary, the mother of rape baby Jesus, was in a temple too, and was being prostituted. And instead you've got a pope who says, Mary Magdalene is one and the same with the prostitute. But we're not going to call her Jesus' wife. No, we're not going that far. And when they had set her in the midst. And so they say unto Jesus, Master, this woman was taken in adultery. So she was using the temple for prostitution. The scribes and Pharisees apparently were spying on her, doing a peep show thing, and decided they were offended. Because notice there's no guy here. And she was caught in the very act. Where's the guy? Not the point of the author's intent. And so they were trying to get him to go against the laws of the land, because the Romans would say, so we do it. But they're trying to trap Jesus into following the law, and thus Rome punishes Jesus for stoning a woman who's doing the practice that the Romans are doing, or punish Jesus for not punishing the woman. But here he is brilliant as Captain Obvious to them. And so he says, those of you, I don't know, where is it? He who is without sin among you, let him cast a stone at her. First cast a stone at her. And so if you watch the Simpsons episode, Bart has no problem throwing the stone. But this is a situation now where Jesus says, you caught her. You're her judge. So if she violated the law, then you do it. And they didn't want to do it. And they say that it's because they were convicted by their own conscience. And so the question then becomes, is Jesus allowing sin? Now, if you use Russell Marion Nelson's manner of translating Hebrew, yes. Because the passage in Matthew chapter 1, the meaning of Jesus is let people sin. If he's going to pull that crap of let God prevail, that same pattern on Matthew for the name Jesus, let people sin. Same pattern. Don't get angry at me because you don't know Hebrew. Oh my God, it is getting so hot. But it's not hot enough to turn on the air conditioning. There's no air circulation either. Dear God. Has the earth stopped moving? We're all going to die. We need air. Where are you, shoe? Where are you? Okay? And so, yeah, they let it be, because that's the Roman practice. See what a difference is when you use the evidence and establish the facts. Big difference in interpretation. Everyone else gets this wrong. I am the only one who has correctly interpreted this. Nobody on the face of the earth knows the information because everybody else has their own preconceived bias for a conclusion. Like the one guy said that the data shows a preconceived conclusion. Okay? And so Joseph Smith is not only accused of being a polygamist, but also a child rapist and an adulterer. Thus the connection, sort of. And it is vital that you know the difference between fact, evidence, hearsay, and opinion. And nobody does in this church, or those who leave, because they don't believe that the claims are good. And that's all it is. The church says Joseph Smith was a polygamist, and so only two camps emerge from that precept that the church claims. One, Mormons who stay Mormon say that, okay, Joseph Smith is a polygamist. You have this Mormon who's a monogamist who says, I don't believe you, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but I'm going to stay Mormon and be prostituted by my husband, or if she's not married, pay the prostitution price for her husband, according to the Roman practice, without a husband. She just can't have any sexual feelings. And so, I'm sure she's just a young woman, not past the age, and so she can just turn off those feelings even after you still get those feelings, don't you, women? You can just turn them off though, right? Just turn them off. Yep. Just turn them off. And so you assume that guys can just turn it off too. Since you can turn it off, so can guys, right? And then when you slip up, you go and you talk to your bishop and you go into graphic detail of the little thought you had in your head of the sexually graphic nature. Naughty girl. Naughty girl. Can't have that. Okay? And so what are the evidence? Well, did anybody catch Joseph Smith in the act? No. Were there any documents by Joseph Smith violating the United States of American laws that prohibit polygamy and bigamy? Nope. No evidence exists. But like I said, Book of Mormon, 6 times. Joseph Smith's 1830 Book of Mormon by Still Mormon revealed that Joseph Smith wrote in his copy of the Book of Mormon for Jacob saying 1 wife. He wrote at the top 1 wife. Really? That was news to you, was it, Joseph? And then in the text off to the side column, he did a little bracket thing and notification of where that is. 1 wife. Joseph Smith knows 1 wife from the Book of Mormon. No polygamy. Joseph Smith teaches no polygamy, monogamy only. Because in the 1835 Doctrine and Covenants, a primary source document, Joseph Smith put in a whole chapter section on monogamy, condemning polygamy. Real simple way to do research. So what happened? The person that the monogamous Mormon had was a polygamous Mormon who also was getting attacked by John Dehlin. John Dehlin hates women. What's up with that? And I just cringed. She said that John Dehlin called her and they talked for 2 hours and now she's going to be on his show. Oh, dear. Oh. John Dehlin is educated on predatory behavior, grooming behavior. You got groomed, girl, just like Exmo Lex got groomed. I did the video warning Exmo Lex, don't do it, you got groomed. She did it, and she doesn't care, and now she's... God. You never listen to me, guys. You have your own feelings and opinions of things, and you don't care for truth. Did I ever tell you? I have, but did you ever watch? No, probably not. My one-on-ones with John Dehlin. He emailed me to, or commented to have me contact him, and so then I contacted him, and then he said, "Didn't you do a video saying that psychology is a fraud?" Yeah. And he was offended. He doesn't want to speak with me now. He doesn't get it. He's a PhD. He can't get it. It's his job. He loses his source of income if he confesses that his job is a fraud. That's why you got to pay attention to Oakes when he says you can't trust people whose motivation is priestcraft. John Dehlin is a priestcrafter. He's talking about religious subject matter and asking for funding. This Mormon woman of monogamy also is asking for funding. Priestcraft, guys. Social media is free. I don't have to pay YouTube to post videos. And I don't need to pay or have people pay me for the $20 camera that freezes when it gets cyber attacked by a Mormon who's ordered to attack me. And has the scratchy noise in the background so that there's no filter that I can get rid of the background noise. But nonetheless, I mean, still, none of this is professional. It's not intended to be. There's no way I'm going to have people pay me for religious subject matter. And I don't really care for getting money anyway. I have no desire for our monetary system of economy. It is an extortion racket that our government is pulling on us. And it's abusive, and lots of harm is coming from it, and now it's being made worse. But nonetheless, the church also financially destroyed me. 6 times. They're still trying to do the 7th, but they still haven't found out where I am yet. Apparently. They know my IP address, obviously. And still, Trump, I better hear in the news that you ordered Pam Bondi to take down the church. Otherwise, you've got leaks who are protecting the church with the email system not wanting to present it for you. I'm fed up with it. The morning's video on Adam on Diamond. There it is. There's the plot to overthrow the government. In a shortened 1-hour video. That is the short to explain matters regarding church stuff. Now we're entering into church news time. So now I'm late. Okay? And so, yes, I know every single issue that both sides use for their personal opinions. From Joseph Smith's talk to the elders saying that go marry the native Indian women, to defense, to all believers in Christ, to the 15-year-old housemaid, to Sidney Rigdon's daughter, to the other woman, to the 23 women, including my 3rd great aunt, Desdemona Fulmer. I know all of them, guys. Just because you think I don't know, because you don't watch all 8.4K videos of mine, or that you heard other people and you have done a short on how somebody owned John Dehlin without explaining what it was that you owned him on. That was the stupidest video. What the hell? Just, God. And so, all of it is explained when you use the evidence first, because the evidence can dispel the rumors, the hearsay, the false claims, false accusations. Oliver Cowdery, for example, did not catch Joseph and the 15-year-old housemaid in the act of sex. He was upset and left because Joseph and Sidney were going in a direction for the church that Oliver Cowdery disagreed with. And so upon leaving, he then throws in, "I think it's inappropriate to have a 15-year-old housemaid." Oh? My dad pulled that stunt in 2008 on me. Didn't you, Dad? That's a false accusation to make. It was inappropriate of Oliver Cowdery, just because he didn't like the way that Joseph and Sidney Rigdon were taking the church in. So once you understand that, the 15-year-old issue disappears. She's out of the equation. She never got pregnant by Joseph, by the way. Another fact that kind of is important to the story. Oh, but they were giving elixirs. John C. Bennett, for example. Yeah, John C. Bennett was a Danite who formed his own halcyon order of the Illuminati after Joseph Smith excommunicated him for adultery. You guys sort of leave that one out, don't you? He confessed. He thought Joseph was practicing it, so he confessed. Oops. Danites forgot to tell you they lied about Joseph. And was using John C. Bennett to get inside information on what Joseph was up to. And so, when John C. Bennett got caught, he tried to go back to the Danites, and they said, "Get the hell out of here, you loser. You're a sucker and a loser. Get out." The devil never supports their own. It was the Danites who were doing this. It's in section 117, which is a forged document by the Danites. But in so being a forged document, they vindicate Joseph Smith of what they accused him of in 1838 to Thomas B. Marsh, for example, though that was not brought up by Marsh, which is also of note. In 1838, Oliver Cowdery makes the false accusation of the 15-year-old housemaid. That's when the Danites took it upon themselves to perform these underground secret things, but not until Nauvoo, though they were involved in raping of men's wives on their missions. Right, Brigham and Heber? And so in 117, verse 11, we got a whole bunch of stuff, because Thomas B. Marsh says that Newell K. Whitney was there in Adam-on-Diamond with this Bishop Storehouse, but this document did not exist until the year before Brigham Young died and was put in his Doctrine and Covenants as section 117 for us right now. So you need to know that fact. And so they say Newell K. Whitney needs to be ashamed of the Danites. They use Book of Revelation, chapter 2. That talks about the Nicolaitan band. Doing your research on the Nicolaitan band, you'll learn that Christians were the ones who knew of them, but made stuff up about them. But the Danites, they only know the made-up Christian version of it. So what is the made-up Christian version of the Nicolaitan band that the Danites are saying is them? They were swapping wives. Not just cheating on their wives. Not just rape. This Nicolaitan band, according to Christians, was just brutally inhumane in their treatment of women. And the Danites are claiming that that's what they did, and said that Joseph Smith was not doing it. He was condemning it. Oops, they kind of forgot. Every single Mormon, whether you left the church because you were offended that Joseph Smith was doing it, or whether you believe that doing it was okay, or whether you are in denial that Joseph Smith was falsely accused, that he was a monogamist still, it's right here for you. And so, Bishop of Adam-on-Diamond, which Thomas B. Marsh talked about, which is where the Danites, the true Mormons, had as their secret headquarters. That was what was leaked by Thomas B. Marsh. And that's why the extermination order was given, because Thomas B. Marsh was told by the Danites, Joseph is in charge of this Nicolaitan band. But he didn't mention polygamy. He didn't even mention rape, because he didn't actually go. He just witnessed that they had burned down the neighboring villages and murdered and looted and brought the loot back to Adam-on-Diamond. And so apparently he did not witness rapes that these guys were doing, as American Primeval did. Those Danites have still, to this day, right, Sister Mendenhall, been committing sexual abuse. And so it's sad that everybody wants to threaten other people to believe their beliefs rather than learn the truth. That Section 132, likewise, has no source origin. All of a sudden, it's put in 1832. And there's a woman who left the church, but still believes Joseph Smith was a polygamist, who's done the videos, and she's been in contact with somebody who did research that the linguistic pattern is Brigham's. I already did that because I know how to do it. I did the other tests as well. And so this has got to stop, guys. It is the church who is perpetuating the lies about Joseph Smith in the Book of Mormon. All you needed to do was run that test. And instead you're arguing amongst each other over your differing opinions. You're never coming to the knowledge of the truth. When the Book of Mormon says it's in the learning of the Jews, and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints says it's another testament of Jesus Christ, you know they're now lying to you. And so if you willingly choose to believe their lie, whether you have faith promotion for it or doubt promotion for it, you are legitimizing their lie. And you are denying Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon. And thus everything else that you argue about is based on believing the core lie that this church is false, fraudulent, criminal, terroristic, seditious, evil. And you won't believe me. So I'm just wasting my time in videos, aren't I?